you remember the specific moments when you thought, I want to be an actor? Robert?
Me? I'm first.
You came from a military family, you said.
It was strange because I was in school and I wasn't doing too well in school academically, and I come from a military background, and actually my parents kind of pushed me into acting, which is the reverse of what it was supposed to be. And they were the ones that thought maybe I could do it. And I tried it on an academic level in a small college in Illinois, and it kind of worked out, and I had a good thing. And then I went in the Army anyway, and then when I got out I went to New York. So I want to thank my parents for that. But I guess we used to do skits around the house and stuff like that. My brothers were both professional singers, and it was a little shove by my parents that awakened a desire to be an actor, I think.
Did you like the Army?
No, I didn't like it, but I was in for 22 months. It would have been better for 6 months, you know. The only thing I liked about the Army was the marching.
Why?
The military, you know, the whole rhythm, you know, the marching. When 1,000 guys are there and they say, battalions, company, present arms. And there's one guy at port arms, and everybody's like this. It's amazing. But I didn't, but you know, I was drafted. I went in. You know, I wasn't in the Navy, which my father was, but you know, my mother had been an amateur actress, but that didn't have any bearing on it. It's just that it was an expedient thing to get me through school.
Do you still like it?
What?
Acting?
Yeah, I do.
Why?
Why? It's fun. It's fun, right? I mean, it's fun. You know, they pay you for it. It's like kids playing house. You grow up and you play, you know, you do this kid, the kid that plays that, you know, you play that part, and they pay you for it, and it's a wonderful profession. Some people say it's not, but I think it's a wonderful profession. Brandon never used to like the profession. He was a guy we kind of all looked up to, but I think it's a wonderful profession. And as long as people can benefit from what you do, maybe they say, oh, I saw you in a movie, I saw you in The Great Santini, you helped me with my father, the relationship, so it makes you feel good. You don't do it for that reason, but you know, there are many side effects, side things that, you know, it all adds up. Yeah, everybody would like the profession. It's a wonderful profession, why not?
Is it?
To be an actor, you know, there's room for all.
What's the best and what's the worst thing about it, Colin?
Well, I echo a lot of what Robert said. Play acting, playing. I mean, you get to play all your life, you know. Most people have to grow up out of it and put on a suit and you know, do a proper day job, and we just get to carry on role playing and, you know, whatever it was, playing war, so the fantasy thing stays alive, which is absolutely wonderful. It can be a little hard on people living with you if you are stuck in that mentality, because you know other people do have to get on with life, and you're sort of left behind in childhood, and you look like a grown-up, but you know, there's a part of you that's still in that dream world. And so that it's a little hard to conform from that point of view. The other thing I would say is that if you are one of those people that wants to remain a child in that way, you can be very susceptible to the slings and arrows. You can just love the attention a little bit too much and get giddy when they love you and pat you on the back and just go weak at the knees. And when it doesn't work out, it hurts just a little bit too much too, and you maybe just one of those people that you know burst into tears is an unkind word. So the stakes are quite high, and so you know when the job is wonderful. I mean, I would spend my whole life probably just rehearsing with my friends. You know, it's putting it out there, I think, and is when the risk kicks in, and that can feel absolutely wonderful. It can feel really awful. So
what's been the worst moment for you?
Oh, there's so many of them. Yes, I mean, it can be one word in a review or something somebody said, or somebody, you know, can just come up and shower you with wonderful words, and just the last thing they say is they walk away. It's what? You liked everything except what? And that's the one thing that sticks in your mind. 99 wonderful things got said, and one thing is the thing you take to bed with you and keeps you awake at night. But no, I can't think of one particular awful moment. you know, most of us who survive, and I think I'm beginning to be old enough to count myself among them, have strategies for that. For me, it's humour, really. I think, you know, whatever happens that you think is bad, it's the capacity to laugh it off. Gets you through it. I've never found any other way through the difficult parts of it. It's hard to explain this to people who don't do this, because it does seem, it's a life full of perks and joy.
What are you talking about?
I mean, we're not in the salt mines, you know, I do know that. You know, we're not on the front line of some war or something. I mean, this isn't what a lot of people would even consider work. So I think, you know, if you're lucky enough to get the work, and that's a huge...
Have you had periods where you weren't lucky to get the work? Have you had periods where you weren't lucky to get the work?
Yeah. That's the worst of all. I mean, quite frankly, we're all talking about position of privilege here, people who get employed. That has its own set of problems. I mean, a huge majority of people in our business don't have that. And then there's another thing, that the people who do get the work, that the work isn't of a quality which, you know, it's not something we can really thrive in. Christoph was saying this last year. He pointed out the fact, what if you're
Christoph was,
yes. What if you're stuck in the most horrible quality TV year after year after year? You know, how can you ply your art, your craft at its great, at its, you know, at its best?
Have you done a film or a role where you really felt it wasn't quality and you knew it?
Oh, yeah. Have you glanced at my CV?
What's been the most difficult for you on that level? Is there one that you can particularly...
I can't name one. Because, you know...
Mark, how about you? Can you name one of his?
None.
No, it's... I mean, I could name several, but obviously I won't go there.
I'm curious about when you didn't get work. How long did that last, and what did you do?
It wasn't actually. I've been very fortunate in that I've never had periods where there's been absolutely nothing at all. It's just been where there's nothing I feel I could contemplate doing or do happily. That's you know, and that's already luckier than some. No, it's inactivity. You have to try to find some way to keep yourself, to apply yourself. You know, because inactivity is soul destroying for anybody.
And what do you do when you're not working?
Oh, are you talking about the periods when it's been difficult and I can't find... I can't remember what I did then. I think I probably just stewed in it, really. It's not a very productive thing. You know, there's a joke... Do you guys use the word resting here in America? It's a euphemism, the English euphemism for being out of work, which actors have never used as far as I know. It's something non-actors think actors say.
Oh, interesting.
You know, are you working? Are you resting? You know, you meet people in other. They think they're in the know because they use this word. And actually, I remember an actress friend of mine who hadn't worked for about 2 years.
Rotting. We say rotting. What's that? just rotting.
Yes, well, that's what's actually happening. No, this is someone who just lost it. So there is nothing restful about being out of work. It's not a holiday unless you know when the next one's coming and you know it's a payday and all the rest of it. Then you can take a holiday.
Well, what's been the toughest moment in your career?
Well, I spent a lot of time bartending before I ever got an acting job, well into my late 20s, and I bartended here in Hollywood, and so everyone that I was serving were all the young actors who were working. And I was doing all these little plays here in Hollywood. When you mentioned doing a play in Los Angeles, you're immediately considered a loser. And
Not in New York.
But not in New York, no. No. It was my biggest mistake was to mention the casting directors here that I was actually doing theater here. I would come in and brag about that, and they would immediately, I'd see their eyes glaze over, and for years I couldn't understand what was happening, and I realized, well, if you're doing theater in Los Angeles, then you're a loser. But just seeing all these young guys out partying every night who are supposed to be acting the next day, and they were lousy tippers, and I was just like, where's my Rumblefish? You know, where's you know, I wanted to be them so badly, and I was so far on the outside of them, and that was rough. That was really
when they were
rough.
making Rumblefish?
What?
No.
That's how old I am.
Are you serious?
Where's my?
You weren't born, right?
Yeah.
I don't.
I remember that.
Damn, you just got served.
Damn. Thanks.
No, I didn't know.
Where did you come from, and what's your background? How did you decide to act?
I come from Kenosha, Wisconsin, and really blue collar family. Not you know, not particularly part of this world in any way. But I saw when I was little. I was 8 years old. My grandmother let me stay up one night late. She's like, "There's a world premiere of a great movie on tonight," and I'm like, "What is it, Grandma?" And she's like, "It's called Streetcar Named Desire." And she let me stay up, and I says, I must have been 8 years old, and I'm watching that, and you know, I see where you fancy fast fella, and I see that moment, and I look at her, and I'm like, who's he? What does he do? What is he doing? And I didn't really understand what acting was at that moment, but I was so sort of enamored by what I was seeing, so I responded to it in such a way that I kind of was like, I want to do that, you know. Like, you know, we did skits, we did Three Stooges skits, we did, you know, Laurel and Hardy, we did all that stuff in the basement or on holidays for the rest of the family.
Did you then train professionally, or?
When I was 18, my family moved out to San Diego, and you know, by that point I was pretty much just surfing and smoking grass, and I wanted to be an actor, but I was afraid to make that statement or commitment to anybody, and life was getting so boring there. And someone said, go to Stella Adler in Los Angeles, and you know, you should go try to be an actor. And so I said, Dad, what do you think? And he's like, hey man, what's the worst that can happen to you? You're gonna die? Well, then it won't matter anyway. You know. So I started taking the train up from San Diego every other day. We were really poor, so I would bus tables at night, and then the next day I'd have enough money to take the train up, catch a bus to Hollywood, study at the school. I was there all day long. I'd get on the bus, go back home, and that was kind of...
Go back to San Diego?
Yeah, I went back to San Diego.
20 miles.
Yeah, it was 2 hours. It was 2 hours there, 2 hours back. But I loved it so much, and it was, you know, plays and theater, and you're an artist, and acting is an art form, and you have to mean something, and you have to lift yourself. I mean, things that you never hear, and it just was a big opening, just blossomed.
What makes a great actor, not a good actor? What makes a great actor?
I wouldn't know.
Robert, I mean, you are a great actor. And
You
work with
a bunch of great actors.
and you mentioned
When actors
Brando.
talk about other actors, they always say he's a good actor. I never hear guys saying he's a great actor. When actors talk, they say, no, he's a good actor, good actor. You say, when you go on these talk shows, everybody's a great actor when they go on the talk show. I don't care who it is. I would think a great actor would be Stark Young with a great commentary on Sarah Bernhardt compared to Eleanor Duse. They say Eleanor Duse came in the first act, saw her daughter she hadn't seen in years, and she blushed. As opposed to the third act when she bent over and picked up a handkerchief and her face turned red. So that, to me, that would be a great guide to try to do what Eleanor Duse did.
Meaning what?
Meaning what? Meaning that when she saw her daughter, she had a terrific interior moment that worked in the imaginary set of circumstances. you know, and then, you know, however you arrive at that is, that moment would be great acting, I would think, if you saw that, which, I don't read them usually, but I mean, and I don't necessarily put any faith in critics, but that critic saw that in her, Stark Young, at that time. And yet Sandy Meisner used to say, if crying means great acting, my Aunt Tilly could be another Eleanor. All the girls want to cry.
Not guys, too.
Yeah, as opposed to a nice documentary, when you see somebody move, they sit on it and try not to cry. And that's much more moving. But I don't know, it's very subjective. Somebody, a great actor to somebody might not be to somebody else. It's not like a 2 and 2 or 4 thing, you know. It's like, not like that, you know. They say the greatest actor they ever saw in the group theater was a guy named Giovanni Grasso from Sicily. So maybe when they went to see him, he played Othello, he was phenomenal. The night that all the guys went from the group theater, nothing was happening. And they said, what did you bring us to see this guy? Well, then he put his hand in Desdemona's hair and just left it there, and then something really began to happen. But he was a guy that had such a great instrument. I mean, he could break up from a fly but go right back into it. And or he could do like melodrama, corny plays, the whole play, drink poison at the end of the play, stand up and fall over dead, and they said it was phenomenal. So I suppose at that moment that was great acting. But once again, maybe somebody went to see him on an off night and didn't think he was a great actor, but it was an off night, you know. Sometimes in film, you know, you can get the best take that's not necessarily the best performance in the 8 performances a week, which Sousa wouldn't do 8 performances when she came to New York. She wouldn't do 8 shows. It's too much. So I think it's a very subjective thing, right? Who's great and who's not.
Somebody
It's not like 2 and 2 is 4.
said Richard Burton, I think it may have been Olivier, he said, look, you've got a choice. You're either going to be a great actor or a great star. Is that, do you agree with that? Is it something, but Ryan, I'm sort of especially interested in you because you seem to have opted for really difficult, risky material and worked for that and seem to care less about the trappings. Have you been offered those big commercial roles and deliberately steered away from them?
Who, me?
No, Ryan.
Oh, Ryan. Go ahead, your turn.
I mean, have you seen my work in Young Hercules?
No.
Well, I did.
But I have seen Blue Valentine, which is extraordinary.
Well, you know, I did a lot of kids TV, you know, and I did just so much television that at a certain point, you know, I just felt like I'd done that, you know. So then when I sort of was starting to make films, I wanted to, you know, kind of move on from that, you know. And I also, you know, I think my family is kind of like everyone's family, but kind of crazy, you know, a lot of characters, and the people that I was growing up around, I just didn't often see reflected in film. You know, people seemed to be one way in movies. They were good or they were bad or they were whatever they were supposed to be. But the people that I was growing up around were everything all the time. They were good people and they were really bad people. They were funny, but they were doing terrible things, and you know, that was just my experience. You know, so I think I just naturally gravitated towards those kinds of characters because they felt more. I felt like I knew them.
Have you been offered any of those sort of big superhero type roles and turned them down?
Yeah, but I think that is really hard to do. You know, to pretend like something's there that's not there, that some monster is chasing you that's not actually chasing you. I mean, that's like a whole kind of acting that it's a lot harder than to sit at a table and act natural, and you know, to be in you know, to do what I've been doing lately is I think a lot. I mean, I enjoy it more as well, but it seems a lot easier than to make one of those films. I don't believe in my ability to do that. I think if I did, I probably would try one.
Was Blue Valentine a tough film to make? Because I mean, it's harrowing emotionally. Do you go home? And I think what Colin was saying about the people who, you know, your choices have an effect on. When you're making a film like that, does it affect your domestic life?
Well, I think it was a lot harder for Michelle because she's a mom. You know, she had to go home and be a mom and leave work at work. for me it's easy because I didn't, you know, I was sitting in a hotel room for however many months I was there, and I could just be in it, and it was very self-reflective, and you know, I think it was a lot easier for me to do that. And I have friends and people in my life who are very understanding and let me kind of go away and make a movie and then come back. But I think it's much harder for somebody. I'm sure a lot of you have families and wives and kids, and I don't know. I don't know how you do that.
What happens when you have to fight for a role? Because I know that you said that when you had the first meeting with Danny Boyle for 127 Hours, it didn't go well.
Yeah, I didn't fight for it.
You didn't? What did you do?
I thought he didn't want me, so I said okay. I mean, I don't fight for roles now. I've been to film school, so I have certain understanding of what it's like to be a director. And when I'm casting films, I don't. You're just trying to find the best person for the role. And so if somebody doesn't think I'm right for the role, I don't want to force myself on that project, So it turns out Danny thought I was stoned at the meeting, and that's why he was like not
Were you?
excited. No, I was tired. I was doing homework, but no, I wrote him an email. I said, look, I understand, and good luck, and I'm a big fan, and hopefully we can do something down the road. And then he asked me to come out and read for it, and that's how I got it. But I thought it was over.
What was your toughest moment on that film?
The toughest moment? I think it was just the accumulation. It was a very unusual kind of filmmaking experience. I didn't have other actors opposite me for a lot of the film. And the subject matter was, fairly intense, and there was like one set for at least a month and a half. So that can be relentless. But I mean, the great thing about that movie is I had Danny, and I had, there were two DPs on it, and who were the operators, and they were, incredible guys, Anthony Don Mantle and Kike Chadiak, and it's like, it was almost like we all became the performers in a way. It was very unusual, because normally, when you're acting, you're used to acting opposite another person, and that's where the drama comes from, that's where the dynamic comes from, and that's where the scene comes from. That's just, where you kind of just train to do it that way. And in this film, I didn't have that, and so suddenly, the focus isn't on another person, or, it's just on the activities in front of me, and so it's like the operators, because there were like these very mobile cameras, they were figuring out the scenes there while I was figuring it out. And Danny did this great thing where he'd let us do these takes that were 15, 20 minutes long sometimes, and so it's like we were both the performers. We were all kind of finding it together along the way.
Did you meet Aaron Ralston before you did the film? How did that shape the role? Because I know that he was concerned about every precise detail being the same, and I know that was one of the issues between him and Danny.
Oh,
you have to turn left here, not right. You have to,
yeah.
How did that shape you? And did you feel you had to be truthful to him or to the script?
Well, that's actually like an issue that I think there's a couple issues there. I've played characters that are based on real people before, and it's always going to depend. I believe the degree to which you try and take on that person's behavior depends on the movie, depends on what the director wants, depends on the story you're telling. How much you put of them in the film, it's going to vary. In Milk, I played a real guy, but there are things that in his life that we didn't put in the film, but the film's called Milk, it's not called Smith, so it's like you have to say, all right, this isn't his story, what's my part in this film? I'm only going to show this aspect of him because this is what's important to this film. If you play, James Dean, people are going to expect James Dean behavior. That's part of the requirement of that role. You gotta find that behavior. Aaron Ralston, you know, the most vital part of this film or telling his story is his experience, not every gesture that Aaron Ralston makes. That's not gonna, you know, and actually that wasn't even my decision. That was Danny's decision. And that's my other belief. That's the other issue is, when I go into a movie, it's like I can only have one director. I can only have one master. So if I'm trying to please Danny and Aaron Ralston, I'm just going to go insane. So I really let Danny filter, have all those discussions with Aaron, what's going in, what's not, and let him filter, you know, Aaron's.
Now, what happens if you have a real disagreement with your director? Has that happened? And how do you handle it?
What?
If you have a real disagreement with your director, a real conflict over the role, I'm sure all of you have, how do you handle it? What's the biggest disagreement you have, Colin? It's just smiling.
The most likely. It's very uncomfortable. I mean, it's not because it's not a, you know, everyone's got a different attitude to conflict. Some people thrive on it, probably. Some people fear it, and some people are good at it. Those things aside, it's totally, I find it completely unhelpful to what you're trying to do. I love to have to put myself in the hands of somebody, and as you were saying, I don't want to have my focus split. And I don't want to have my focus split either between what he wants and some complete other idea that I've got. Now, you know, if you have faith in this person, then you'll probably give your idea up to theirs. I mean, it's likely to be better, and that's actually exhilarating when that happens. What's awful?
Can you give us an example?
If you fundamentally don't trust the person that you've got there, if you think they're weak and that's shared with everyone else, and you just know you've got the wrong person in charge. And
how often does that happen?
I don't know, guys. It's not that unusual, really. I mean, I think I have been lucky. The number of rather brilliant directors I have worked with. But you can't entirely know how your personality is going to gel with.
We're talking about real life person. I'm very keen to come to you about this, but George VI, what kind of research did you do? Did you meet people who knew him?
Yes, I did, but it's a bit hard with kings, really. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, I would say a lot of what James is saying is exactly what I would say here too. Though I didn't have George VI on the set, you know, telling me to look left or right, there was nevertheless pressure. He's not James Dean, actually, funnily enough, even though he was the King of England. Most of today's generation, it's not like playing Churchill, you know, where everybody's got a model that you have to conform to. So there was a lot more flexibility in terms of how I could reinvent him in some ways, now our image. And I was more interested in researching it for the information I could get about what he was going through than, you know, his body language or how he moved, you know, it's something I could imitate. You know, he had mannerisms. You know, there are recordings, there are visual recordings as well as audio, and there's a whole story in them. A weak hour, a nervousness, a sense of wanting to, I think, to retreat into the shadows, a certain apologetic quality in it. Now, I didn't seek to try to act those things, but they told me something about him, which I could import into the story. And because I don't think he's that familiar, I had some freedom with that. But, you know, most of us here, if we were going to play a doctor, you would want to hang around with the doctor for a few days, and, or you know, and if a soldier or whatever. And as I said, you know, kings don't tend to do that. You can't spend a week with a king, having him show you the ropes, and the flow of information out of the palace to the general public is non-existent. Absolutely nothing at all. They will not share anything.
Really?
No.
You approached them?
No, we didn't. I mean, there's no point. I think somebody on the film approached one of the private secretaries to one of the equerries to one of the members of the royal family, and they took an interest in what we were doing, but no, we didn't get direct contact. But there are people who specialize in the royal family and study them and watch them, and I'm not one of them. I knew nothing about this individual. I don't know anything about the royal family or their dealings at all. So it was very new to me, and but there were people who write books about them, and some of those people knew. I mean, Hugo Vickers was a fellow who's an expert who knew the Queen Mother very well, which is the part that Helena Bonham Carter plays, and he was able to give, discreetly personal. She would never have done that. No, she preferred marshmallows to chocolates. I don't know. There's just sort of little bits and pieces, but it's all secondary.
Was there any one thing that somebody said to you that proved pivotal to the role? The aha moment of, oh, yeah, now I understand. I mean, I know that the diaries emerged late in the game.
Well, that was incredible. No, I mean, there wasn't one moment. No, it was we had to build it painstakingly, really. I mean, the diaries was an amazing discovery when I found out that we found those. This is a thing where, as I said, there's no information, but the speech therapist, who is very little known to the world, his family were traced. And I think they were actually found by just going through the telephone directory until somebody said, yes, that's our family. Going through every log, and said, yes, and also we have all these diaries and letters and records, and if you were interested, it had been in the attic. So it was like finding the Dead Sea Scrolls, the stuff that was buried. And some of the dialogue in our film is taken from those diaries. I mean, they were gems. And we found out how much humour there was between these guys. And to David Seidler's, the writer's great credit, they fit it. I mean, he'd speculated correctly in a lot of ways. I mean, he wasn't on the wrong track here. I mean, there's a line towards the end of the film where, after a long speech, he says, "You still stammered on the W." And George VI says, "Well, I had to throw in a few, so they knew it was me." We found that in the diary. Those words were exchanged by these two guys. And so, and everything that was written about George VI, it seemed to me, or not everything, but a lot of it was suggested that he was dull-witted, that he was the uncharismatic, the boring brother, the one who didn't really have any wit or humour or spark about him. And this stuff proves that completely wrong. He had a great irony about himself. He was not an earnest individual at all. So, I think with all of us, you hope there are going to be little trigger points that unlock something, and lots of little moments where you go, let's go. It's very rare that you're stuck and then a road to Damascus moment happens and your whole character is unlocked. That's never happened to me.
One thing I just have a question for Jesse is, so you get the part, you're playing Mark Zuckerberg, it's probably not going to happen that you're going to sit down with him and get access to him or anyone at Facebook. What's your first thing you do? Do you reach out and say, I'd like to see some tapes of him at conferences or wherever? Do you go online and try to find out everything there is to know about him? Or do you say, let's not do that. Let's go to the script. That's it.
We were discouraged from meeting them, and even more so researching the characters we were playing personally. But it was so tempting to, and ultimately impossible not to. In fact, I drove up to Facebook twice and got a call on the way up from yelled at by the people working on the movie that I should not go, that it would be a bad idea. So I was.
What was your plan? To just meet
go in
there?
And just meet him. I just felt like, how could I not attempt to meet a guy I'm playing? It would just.
Who called you, David or Scott?
It was a conference.
Are you actually driving up there?
Yeah.
With an appointment or with no appointment?
No, because there was no liaison, that was, working on behalf of the movie with Facebook. So I just, I wanted to do everything I could possibly do to feel as prepared as possible, even if it didn't have some I don't know, direct impact on the movie because I see the way he shakes hands and then I shake hands that way. That was not my purpose. My purpose just was to feel as prepared as possible. So I did. I read everything about him and watched every video I could find, and it was really helpful. I thought it would be maybe limiting to play somebody real and so specific, but it turned out to be really freeing, actually. You know, you'd watch a video and you'd see the kind of strange way unique way he licks his lips, and then figure out, you know, why is he licking his lips that way? Is he trying to avoid the question? Is he prolonging the point before he has to answer? And where could that work in this movie? Oh, and of course, this is exactly where that would happen. And then you lick your lips, and it has this kind of visceral reaction of, oh, right, I am trying to avoid this person's question, which is what he did, which is probably why the real person did it. And in a way, it was kind of like cheating. In a way, you'd find these videos, and you know, maybe it would start as mimicry, but then it would have some kind of visceral response, and ultimately be very useful, and you know, kind of take you in it further.
One thing that Aaron Sorkin said on the Writers' Roundtable last week was that when he was writing the script, he said, you know, he felt a responsibility because he knew that this was probably going to be the introduction of Mark Zuckerberg to the vast majority of people who would see the movie.
Right.
When you're working on the character, is there some sense of like ethics or moral responsibility when you're putting it together to say, you know what, I have a responsibility to do this and not this, or is it just the best character and the best adherence to the script?
Well, I guess I didn't feel the same ethical dilemma as him because I wasn't framing the way he's viewed. I was, you know, in a way defending him more than anybody else. You know, I didn't judge his actions from a kind of an objective place. I looked at it subjectively when I first read the script because they had sent it to me for that role. I looked at it initially through his eyes, and I saw that everything he was doing was, you know, justified. I don't know if it's, you know, what I would do personally, but I understood in the context of the character and the situation, it's totally justified and rational. So I felt, I guess I didn't feel any kind of ethical dilemma because I felt more than anybody on the set, in some ways even more than Aaron because he's responsible for all of the characters. It was my job to defend this character.
There are two very different versions about him. There's the Ben Mesrick book and the David Kirkpatrick book. Did you read both before shooting the film?
No, the kind of Facebook approved book was not out while we were shooting. So I read the Ben Mesrick book, but you know, it doesn't focus on my character, and when it does, it's not. It wasn't a character that seemed to be the character I was playing. It seemed to be the character through somebody else's eyes, and it's. I mean, so I couldn't think of the character that way because it was the character through somebody else's eyes who had been hurt by him and who was not, you know, an unbiased friend.
What was the toughest part for you about playing the role? Was there one particularly difficult scene or moment?
No, not like I can't think of a specific moment, but you know, having worked on a movie with him, you know, the director, you know, does things a lot, which I loved. You know, occasionally I felt frustrated because I thought, you know, we would do like, you know, let's say 50 takes of a shot, and I felt 48 of them were just terrible and mortifying, and so I felt bad because I felt like I did a lot of bad stuff at the end of the day, but you also felt like you did two that maybe you wouldn't have done had you not been given 50 opportunities. But I mean, the difficult thing about the character is that, you know, he's oftentimes, and this is why I saw the movie once and it was so frustrating. I don't like to watch movies I've been in anyway, but which I mean is not atypical at all. But I mean, but this one was just so disturbing because the character has no kind of like, he doesn't convey his emotions easily to, well, the audience, I guess, but I mean, but he doesn't convey anything to the other characters. I mean, he does this as a kind of in a self-defensive way, and so I guess the difficulty for me was kind of like trying to suppress everything I had been taught to do as an actor, which is express yourself. And in fact, I always try to like overcome the lack of expression that I innately possess. So for me to suppress what I've been kind of attempting to do for a while was like a bit difficult, but it was the right thing for the role. And then as I kind of eased into it more, I found that, you know, the reasons behind the kind of opaque stares and the reasons behind the kind of very terse answers, and then it felt kind of more interesting and rich to me.
To say that 48 takes were bad and 2 were good, it's kind of hard. Are you always that hard on yourself?
Yeah, I usually keep. I mean, I've been in like 2 movies. I'm embarrassed to say this in this room, but
but I'm going to ask the other people.
I usually keep like a.
Fincher would do 50 takes regularly on each.
Who's the director?
David Fincher.
Yeah.
You don't want to work with him.
No. It's an incredible experience.
But are you always that critical of yourself?
Yeah, usually more so. I mean, I did a movie 2 years ago. I kept like a. What's that?
No, go ahead.
What's that?
You did a movie 2 takes ago.
No, I did a movie 2 years ago, and I kept.
Which one?
It was called Adventureland, and I kept a notebook of the takes that I liked. I gave them to the script supervisor, who keeps track of that, and the director, who I was like, he was very, he was upset, of course, because that's not my job to do. And so, but I was so mortified by the, by what I was doing, and felt that there was only. So I would, after each scene, I would say that I was only good in this third one, only for this line though. So please cut out the rest of the.
Everyone's
lines.
off that because you identify with this, or you're totally different. Mark, what about you?
I have no idea.
You that hard on yourself too?
Well, I'm older now. You can't be that hard on yourself for that long, otherwise you just disappear and just grind yourself down. Now I just try to. I reserve judgment for my wife.
And is she hard on you?
Not as hard as me, but hard enough to keep me. Keep the mule.
Robert, I'm curious because you work with so many directors, and you seem shocked that the director would do that many takes.
Let me say, can I say one thing?
Please.
To me, the great Stanley Kubrick was an actor's enemy.
Well, he did 100 takes.
He was
per
an
shot.
actor's enemy. And I can point to movies that he's done, the worst performances I've ever seen in movies.
Which
and
ones?
Yet, The Shining, what's the one about the Clockwork Orange? Terrible performances. Maybe they were great movies, but they're terrible performances. How does he know the difference between the first take and the 70th take? I mean, what is that about?
Well,
even Brando did 40 takes, 60 takes on that. I said, why would you do that? He said, well, the guy's supposed to do it.
Brando did on which film?
Yeah, with
The Fugitive Kind, right?
the burning. I mean, why would why would anybody do that? I mean, commercials you do that, but I mean, maybe it helped you. I don't
At
know.
what point do you say
I
no?
don't be judgmental.
Yeah,
Maybe it was
right.
good for you, but I don't quite get that.
How do you work when you direct?
Well, I try to turn the process around and let it come from them completely.
Mm-hmm.
Let them dictate what's to be done. You know what I'm saying?
So you let the actors.
Or the non-actors, which if they step across the line, the non-actor can put the professional actor on notice sometimes because they have no bad habits.
Mm-hmm.
And you mix the two. You can mix like the Iranian directors do, and let it come from them because it's their reality.
And then
I don't know about them. I didn't grow up with them. I don't know their history, so let it come from them.
And then you decide the shots
Yeah.
after you've seen
Around
the
Yeah.
scene.
Do a few, whatever. I mean,
Does the
we get to
scene-
do 50, but maybe, I don't know, maybe that's a new way of working. I don't know.
Well, if Kubrick did it, it's not so new. What about Coppola? How many takes would he do?
He didn't do a lot of takes. He was trying to get us to be serious, working with Jimmy Kahn, there's a lot of jokes. It's great. He's the greatest guy in the world to work with. Brando's still trying to remember a joke Jimmy told 25 years ago. Jimmy's a funny guy.
Have you ever walked off a set?
Huh?
Have you ever walked off a set?
Me? Yeah, I was doing a series one time, I played Eisenhower, and I quit. He said, Ike takes a hike,
Why did you quit?
Well, then I went back, the guy had directed the Three Stooges, and that's what he did. It was a TV thing,
So it's the comedy version of the Eisenhower.
I don't know. I don't walk off of sets. I mean, I think everybody would agree. Sometimes, if everything goes perfectly, that means nothing. Sometimes, if everything is perfect, sometimes conflict is good. You turn a negative into a positive. You listen, and sometimes that can be good if you fight with it, or not fight, but have differences. I think. But I mean, you know, I mean, I think you would fight with somebody if they wanted 50, 60, 70 takes.
Ryan, what do you think of that?
I've never had to do that. Yeah.
Would you?
I did a commercial once.
I think, I guess my belief is, you know, it's not a surprise, right, that David Fincher does that. I mean, that's what he does on every movie. So I think if you want to, and I think he makes great movies. So if you want to do a movie like that, you got to know, okay, that's what it's going to entail, and then that's what you do. Hitchcock, I think, was the same way. Like, he's got the shots, and actors are sort of like props, or I don't know, or maybe not. I heard a different story about maybe it wasn't so that way, but if like you want to do a Hitchcock movie, you want to make a movie like that, this is how it's done, and you go in knowing that.
I was
Which is part of it. I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't do a David Fincher movie knowing that and say, "Hey, Dave, I'm going to be doing 5 takes." You know, you know what it's going to be.
He's always been like that, David?
Yes.
How about when he did like 7 and things like that?
I assume.
By the way, no, you got good results from it.
You eventually you start, you know how the first few, and you hit your stride, and then all of a sudden he's walking towards you. You're on take 25, and he's walking towards you, and you're thinking to yourself, "Oh my God, I hope he's coming over here to fire me." And then he walks by you, and he goes, and he walks by you, and he takes the extra behind you, and he goes like this. Just a couple inches there. Okay, let's go again. And you realize, oh, this guy's not. He's thinking of a whole frame. He's got. I'm just happen to be 20% of that frame, which doesn't feel so good all the time, but eventually you get good again. You get crappy, and then you get good again.
I did a thing one time when the scene worked so well that I could have done it all day long, but from the 2 actors' point of view, but after 6 or 7 takes they had it, but I could have gone on for 20 takes because it's like a play. It fit. You know, you could reproduce it and it was still spontaneous.
There was a lot.
But it was from the actor's point of view that let's keep doing it.
Well, he shoots a lot very wide 2-shot stuff. Yeah. He doesn't like to do a lot of coverage. So that was the way we were working. So you had it was a play. You have 6 pages of scenes that he would love to play in a 2-shot and really see actors in space, you know? And so it was like doing play rehearsal. You do 30 rehearsals and finally you're like in the zone together at the same time.
Sometimes the first thing you get in a reading or something, if you capture that, then why go on? That's all I'm saying.
I hear you.
Take 2, take 2.
I hear you.
I turned down a part in 7. Maybe there's a reason I did. Subconsciously.
But sometimes the vision doesn't match up between director and star. I was thinking of sometimes the vision doesn't match up between director and star. I was thinking of Lovely Bones because you were going to do that one and then it didn't happen.
It stayed on the Lovely Bones list.
But was that something like that where it's the kind of visions aren't the same, or?
Yeah, it's just not the same. But it's great if you can work that out beforehand, so you don't go making each other miserable on the movie.
Why was the vision not the same?
I'm sorry?
Why was it not the same?
We just had wildly different ideas of what the film should be, and what and I'm just an actor. You know, it's not my business. It's the director's movie. You know, but if you can't get on board with that vision, then you're going to be secretly sort of sabotaging it, you know, and I don't, I didn't want to be that.
How did that come out in the conversation? Did you say something to Peter, or did he say it to you, and at what stage?
I was 150 pounds when he hired me, and I showed up on set 210 pounds, and we had a different idea of how the character should look, you know. And I really believed he should be 210 pounds. I mean, I was melting Haagen-Dazs and drinking it when I was thirsty, you know. And I really believed in it. I was excited about it. And I showed up and they said, "You look terrible." And I said, "I know. Isn't that great?" "No, it's not. Hit the treadmill." And we just had then what it really was just a sign of much deeper things, you know. But the way I saw the character versus the way that Peter saw the character, and we just, it was late in the game. We didn't talk very much in the pre-production process, which I think was the problem. You know, it just sort of, it was a huge movie, and there were so many things to deal with that he couldn't deal with the actors individually, and I just showed up on set and I'd gotten it wrong. I mean, clearly, but You know?
Did you?
And then I was fat and unemployed.
Did you hit the treadmill when he asked? Did you hit the treadmill?
I mean, yeah, after the movie, it didn't work out. I had to hit
But I mean, when he asked you, did you say, "Okay, I will hit the treadmill," or did you say, "This just isn't working out"?
I'm sorry?
When he said to you, hit the treadmill, did you do that, or did you say, Peter?
Well, it didn't ever become about the weight, because the weight was just indicative of a deeper misunderstanding about the character, and thank God that it happened, because we would have, would have just, would have been an awful environment for everyone to work in, being that opposed, So it ended up being a good thing. It was like the canary in the coal mine.
I'm curious about the guys who got into the business kind of at a young age, and how much what the business is like. I'm talking creatively and the sort of business side of Hollywood, how it's either matched or been different from what your expectations were when you got into it.
Well, you got in young.
Yeah, I did I started doing, just children's theater when I was 8 years old, and then when I was old enough to go into New York City, we lived an hour outside of New York City, I started doing theater in New York when I was 14. I didn't really have any expectations. I mean, I still don't have any expectations. I'm always surprised that I'm surprised that I'm included. I know that's maybe sounds like false modesty, but I feel so on the outside of things that, which is why I started acting in the first place. That I'm always surprised that I'm included in this kind of thing, in this other world, and it's really, that's really nice. I did a movie that I didn't want to do early on when I was 20, and I gave the script to my father. It was he's a college teacher, so he doesn't understand the movie business, and I said, everybody's telling me to do this, and he said, well, you absolutely shouldn't do this, and then my agent called him and told him, you don't understand the way the business works, because I said, can you call my father, because he thinks I shouldn't do this movie, and I didn't know what to do, and so anyway, in terms
Did of you do it?
yeah, so in terms of expectations of the business, yeah, because my father was like, oh, I guess I don't understand it, I think you should go do this, so I have but of course, see, he's right, of course, because the only thing you have that's right is whatever you feel about something, all those other things. It might be, for example, it might be really exciting to somebody else, and they wouldn't have to, get their father's validation of the horror movie script. So in that way, I've developed, almost reluctantly, kind of a bit of a savviness about, trusting whatever you feel as being as valid as whatever, somebody who, has another job feels.
By the way, was your father right, or was he wrong looking back?
No, he's absolutely right, because, of course he's right, yeah. I mean, the agent's right too, but not for me, I suppose.
Is there anything you're particularly proud of? I mean, is there any one moment you look back on and you think, you know what, I'm astonishingly proud of that. And is there also anything you particularly regret? Sometimes I think, I mean, I studied English literature, and sometimes I think, now that it's so many years later, that it all boils down to a handful of quotes that I happen to remember that keep coming back and back and back. And some of my favorite films, it's 3 or 4 moments, and I think, well, if I were the director of those films and I'd made those 3 or 4 moments, that would be enough to justify my entire life. So is there one moment you feel like that about, and is there one that you feel the opposite about? Robert, what about you?
So what's the question again?
Is there one moment looking back, one extraordinary moment that you feel exceptionally proud of in your career? One performance, one scene?
Well, I think, I've done so many, you have to think about it. I guess you think of what's your favorite part, and I guess the 2 most successful things I did were American Buffalo on Broadway, and then the miniseries Lonesome Dove. But I was fortunate enough to be in the two top things in America in the last part of the 20th century, Godfather 1 and 2 and Lonesome Dove. But The Godfather was better directed. The overall arc of Lonesome Dove carried it because it was a great book. But I would say those two things, and within there I had some good moments, I thought. When we hung Jake Spoon, I had a good moment. It just happened when we hung him. We hung our best friend for stealing horses. I had a good moment then. I think actors, when they say, what is that guy, a good actor, they say, yeah, well, he had good moments. That's the one thing they say. He has good moments when they talk about other actors, And when they talk about directors, he's a good director, does he leave you alone? I'm serious. That's what I say. 70 takes here, it leaves you alone. But I would have to say those are I had some. And I recently looked at a thing I did way back on television, because television is all action and cut anyway. Why not do television? Some people won't do television. I played Joseph Stalin, and I think that I hadn't seen it in 20 years, but the closing scene with my daughter, about as good as I can do. And I think Nikita Mikhailov's father, who was Stalin's personal poet, and wrote the national anthem. He worked with Stalin 8 times. He said we did a good job. So that's the best review I've ever got.
You got that from Mikhailov himself, did you?
We got it from the director who talked with the father.
Who's
Ivan
the director?
Passer.
Oh, right, of course.
Yes, Ivan Passer talked with the father.
Really?
But to show you, when you go to get ready to do a film, when we got over there, you think HBO would have told us that the man was still alive. I never knew the man was still alive. I knew Stalin till we'd finished.
Huh.
So you don't get full cooperation very often. Sometimes from people. But I had good moments in different things. But I would say that moment I had in Lonesome Dove that just happened was probably as good as I've had.
Colin, what about you?
I find the business of to find single moments very difficult. I can't do it really. Sometimes something might just hit you out of the blue, but no, I can't boil it down.
I've been thinking about this because there's that film, I don't know if any of you saw, there's a Japanese film called Afterlife. Did you see it? Mm-hmm. Which I wasn't overwhelmed by the film, but it has an extraordinary idea, which is this idea that as you go to the next life, you're allowed to take one memory with you. And what will it be? So, I guess let's.
I've been in purgatory for a while. Though,
Yeah.
One memory of your work, one thing in your work. I'm always changing my mind. I can't think figure out, is it a romantic memory or sexual memory? One thing you're really, it's a highlight for you. What?
I mean, again, every time you look at if you presume you can remember anything, your past occurs to you in different ways all the time, unless you really are sort of in that borderline senile state where you've just kind of ossified all your memories. But it just looks different depending where you stand, what mood you're in, what it occurs to you. You can tell your own story in a million different ways. So it never. The narrative never has its ups and downs in the same form.
Of your own life.
Of your own, or of anything. So I find it very difficult to go that. I mean, there are pivotal moments, but I can spot those, but they're not necessarily moments of great inspiration or great, otherwise. I think that phone calls, can be the difference between your changing life. Your life probably is changing radically every day without you knowing it. There'll be some fork in the road. I know that there's one I can remember very specifically. I was in a drafty BBC rehearsal room corridor, pre-cell phones, and there was a payphone, and thinking, I'm not going to take that job in South America. It's too long, 6 months. No, don't fancy it. And while I was on the phone at 10 in the morning, whimsically changed my mind. And by the end of the phone call, I'd committed to it. That's the job where I met my wife.
What was the project, by the way?
Nostromo. It was an adaptation of...
which never got made?
No, there were many that didn't get made, and maybe it was better that way. No, I mean, Nostromo is one of those things that some people... as a book, it's a great book, and it's very challenging. It's like it's almost a macho thing to try to take it on, like climbing K2 or something, And David Lean wanted to do it, and it got the better of him, and Hugh Hudson was going to do it, and it never happened. And and we had a good stab at it. We may have proved that it's unfilmable. It had good moments. I mean, you talk about moments. I think it's about moments. I really do. And to single one out and say that's the one.
It's hard to do. Yeah.
What about the other guys? Do you have one moment you're particularly fond of, proud of? Ryan?
You mean that I've done?
Yeah, who else?
No, it's hard.
I thought I have to tell you, I thought one moment in Blue Valentine was among the most extraordinary moments I've seen on film, which was where she. By the way, I don't know if anybody's seen the film, but it's such a difficult film to watch. I mean, just extraordinarily difficult. And as I said to Ryan, sorry to make it difficult, but I said to Ryan afterwards, I have not stopped thinking. I haven't stopped thinking about it since I saw it. But there's one scene where you're playing the banjo and she's dancing for you. Is it the banjo? And I thought, oh my God, I've rarely seen such a beautiful, marvelously acted scene in my life.
Oh wow!
Did you feel that about that scene, or was it like, well, that was easy for us, you know?
Great moment.
Oh,
it is, isn't it?
I think the experience of making that film is something that I think that I'll always remember. I think this filmmaker is very special, and in the way in which he's a documentary filmmaker, and the freedom in which we were given, and I had 4 years to work on that character, and Michelle.
That's the different from 50 takes, right?
Right.
Better.
Yeah, well,
from you.
this was one take.
Is that better or worse?
The way Kenneth Loach works, turns it around, lets it come from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we only did one take of everything.
Did you?
We never did more than one take, and
with rehearsals?
we had 4 years. She had 6 years to prepare, and I had 4 years to prepare. So we were ready. We felt.
But you rehearsed.
We never rehearsed. And the way that he filmed it, it's these characters are when they're getting to know one another. So were we. We didn't. Michelle and I didn't know each other. All we knew is that for the past 4 to 6 years we've been working on these characters. So we were both very anxious to show each other what we'd come to. And he just filmed it. And for instance, that night that scene happened, he said that we would shoot from sun down to sun up, and whatever we did, he would follow and shoot, and it was up to us. So there's a whole movie's worth of material in that night, but that one scene came out of it. And he also compromised. He because we didn't have any money and the film fell apart so many times, he decided that he wouldn't even have lights on the movie. We didn't have a lighting truck. We didn't have any lights, so that we could have a whole night to shoot in the hopes of maybe catching one 5-minute scene. He knew where to spend his money in the hopes of grabbing those moments. And the whole movie was that kind of an experience.
Who was the director?
His name's Derek Cianfrance.
He's a young guy. He's on our directors' roundtable next week.
Where's he from?
Yeah, he's correct.
I don't know where he's from. I'm just going to ask one last question before we wrap up.
New York.
We talked about best moments. What about regrets? Is there any one regret that you have professionally? I'm not talking personally. I know you all have regrets. Robert?
Regret?
Maybe you regret turning down that role in Seven after all.
Go around the room and let me think about it.
Or a part you wish you had.
What?
A part you wish you got, or you wish you had made.
Do you regret turning down Godfather 3?
No, because it wasn't as good as the other two.
It wasn't.
He came to my house in Virginia, parked his car, came in. Coppola. And he always wanted my mother's Maryland crab cake recipe. So I wrote it down for him, and then we talked about it. Then he left. He forgot the recipe. He called. He was more concerned about the recipe than what I decided to do for him. And
I doubt that somehow.
no, but
did you like him?
Yeah, I like Coppola. Yeah, he's an interesting guy. Yeah, he is. At first, I didn't know he was. I gained a lot of respect for him because in Godfather 1, they had the first AD was the best friend of a guy, a standby director that was on the set in case he failed and they fired him. So I gained a lot of respect for Coppola. Yeah. No, I'd have to think about regrets. Maybe there are some that I...
James, what about you?
Well, I did for a long time. I did a lot of movies that I just hated, and to the point that it depressed me. And it was a weird position because, you know, you look and you say, oh, I should feel grateful. You know, I am able to work in films. You know, it's something that a lot of people want to do, but I just hated a lot of the work I was doing and the projects I was doing. And so for a long time, there were huge regrets. And but now I actually, having done those things, it made me reorganize my life, view my life in a different way, approach movies in a different way, pursue other things that I was interested in, and doing those films, the bad ones, changed my life. So I can't look back and say I wish I hadn't done them, because they really did change the whole course of my life.